welcome to the inaugural Live with Excel MVP. Apparently there aren't any Excel MVPs anymore, Office Apps MVPs, so I feel free to talk to me about OneNote, PowerPoint and everything else at some point, and I'll look back with a glazed eye expression. But welcome, hi, I'm Liam. I'm going to be your host for the next hour, and we'll be apologising at the end for this session. But in the meantime, welcome along to this first of the Ask Me Anythings, and I'm an entire month ahead of many of you. I'm broadcasting here from Melbourne, Australia, where it's actually Thursday, the 1st of October. Come back to the dates in a minute or two. I know a lot of you it's still going to be Wednesday, but we're going to cover off in the next hour a few topics. Now, if there are some questions in the chat box as well, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat box. Kung and Ali, who are behind the scenes, feel free to interrupt towards the latter end of the session, and I'm happy to take other questions as we see fit. My brief was to come up with 3 to 5 topics or questions that have been asked recently in the tech community or elsewhere, other communities where people seek questions, and I've pulled them out of here. I've got 5. I've decided for 3 longer ones and 2 short ones, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of time at the end for people to go with questions. So I've only got the 3 slides. This is not death by PowerPoint. Last one's a contact one, so I'm just going to go straight into it with the first of the 5 ones here, which is the separating text and numbers. So let me go to something I didn't prepare earlier. Here is just a blank Excel workbook. Now I use Excel 365, or was it Microsoft 365 Excel as it's called this week. This is my stage here. I'm using a 365 variant for the solution to this particular problem. So let me explain what the question was for this one. So I'm going to put in here Liam 123 Kong, and then I'll put 456 Ali 789. So people behind the stage, I've got this, and what I want to do is I want to break this up so that numbers are separate from text, so that I've got this spaced out. It's still there, but it's just better spaced. And look, I'll also put some capital letters in here as well. So let me have an O and an N here, and we'll put a Y at the end here, for instance, and let's have lots of space at the end. So, and I'll put some more spaces here. So I want to make this look better. So this often happens for things where people need to have general ledger codes in accounting systems. It can be used for registration plates, credit card details, street addresses, lots of reasons why people want to separate it out and put it in. Now, there are solutions and explanations out there already before everyone shouts and says, I know how to do this. The common solutions are, if it's just the one time, so I've just got Liam 123, then yes, there is a formula that will do that, where you can go and find and replace the data and put a space in. But once you've got more occurrences and you don't know how many there are, that in the past has taken you down the route of either going into VBA and use defined functions, or cheating in some other shape, form or manner. I'm going to use something that came out with Microsoft Excel 365, which is the dynamic arrays, and some of the functions in here to help you with this. So if you don't have these yet, then maybe you're going to still have to use the other ones. But don't worry, this is the only example I'm putting up that's got the dynamic arrays. I'll put some other options up for other questions afterwards. But I thought I'd start with this because this is showing you some of the functions that are really useful, and also shows you how to put a horrible formula together at the end. So I'm going to break it down into bits. So I'm just going to have my solution of how I put this in, and this will not be my solution. This is where I'm going to put it in a minute or two, so I'll make that yellow. But let's just start with having the original value, or under pressure here to put my actual calculations in. So I'm going to go here and I'll just go equals, and I'll just click on that. Now, if you don't understand that formula, then you've probably got an issue. And I'm going to use a function that a lot of people don't seem to know, the formula text function, which isn't a type of motor racing. It actually is very good at documenting what you've actually written in a spreadsheet. So I've got this, and I'll just put that in here so you can see what it is I'm doing. Now, I want to separate out these characters, and I can see straight away I've referenced the wrong cell. Oops, so we've got the right one. Proof that we're doing this live. Now I want to separate out the characters so that I've got them in different cells. Now, I'm going to use a function you may or may not be aware of called sequence. And what sequence does is if I go equals sequence like this, it's a new function that came out. Let's just zoom in on this if I can. Here, it's got 4 arguments, only one is necessary. It wants to know how many rows to do it over. So it's a case of how many rows, how many columns, what's the starting number, and how much do you want to go up by. In English, I've got to have a grid of so many rows and so many columns. You only need to specify the number of rows. And then you want to say, what's your starting number going to be and what increment do you want it to go up in? So if I said I wanted my starting number to be 1 and I wanted to go up in increments of 5, then it will go 1, 6, 11, 16, 21, etc. over the number of rows and columns specified. So just in its simplest form, if I just put sequence 5 in here, which is just the, let me just go back and do it that way. I don't want to show it in here. That's just showing you what it would look like as a formula. Let's just go back in here and press enter. You can see it puts the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down a row. And that's quite nice. Whereas if I go instead equals sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to do instead just the numbers 3 and 7, because it's going to be 1 row, 2 columns, starting at 3 in increments of 4. So if I make it 5 rows and 2 columns, it's going to go 3, 7, 11, 15. And notice the formatting is not made all nice elsewhere here. This is called spilling, and this is what's creating a dynamic array because the range extends. And I'm going to use this feature to help me get to the bottom of this particular problem. So if I delete this, it just knocks them all out here. So I'm going to actually work out how to actually split all those characters into separate characters in here. So if I did instead equals sequence, instead of going 5, I go 1, 5. That means 1 row, 5 columns. It puts the numbers going across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's part of the idea of what I'm going to do here. I'm going to work out what's the length of my text. So there's a function, a text function in Excel. Let's use that, keep that as formula text. I'm going to use the length function. Len, actually, if I click on this, I'll click on this here, len F6, tells me how many characters there are in here. There's 55 characters I've put in there. So I've got that in there. Okay, well, that tells me what it is. So if I were to go equals sequence 1, I keep doing this, I keep going in the wrong one here. Do it in this one, equals sequence. Sequence 1, and put it in here like that. What that will do is it will give me the numbers 1 to 56 going across. See how this is working so far? Now, instead of having that, I want to actually specify the character that's in here. And there's a function in Excel called mid. And mid says, right, which character do you want? So if I was to go here equals mid, and I start with this text, and I say, right, I want you to go to position 3 and go 2 characters. And I'll just make this a bit bigger up here so you can see what the syntax is when I scroll on it here. So it says text, start number, and number of characters. So I'm going to go to the F6 text, and I want to go to the 3rd character and return the 2 characters there. What that would do is that would give me back the 3rd character is the A, L-I-A, and it'd be 2 letters, so it would come back with am. And that's the sort of idea I'm coming up with here. So what I would do is I'm going to wrap this one. Instead of going sequence, I'm going to say, right, I'll take mid of this particular range, and it's going to be of these cells up here, F6. That's going to give me the numbers 1 to 55, all the characters, and then I only want it to return the 1 character. So that's going to give me all the actual characters in here. So let's just widen that up a little bit so you can see it here. And you've got in here this particular range with all the characters in there. And we need this particular feature because if I put more characters in here, this needs to spill further, it needs to go further along. Now I want to identify the numbers in there. Now, for those who follow the sort of stuff I write, I use the n function all the time. So if I go, if I have the numbers 5 and Liam here, and I just go equals n open brackets of this and copy it down, that gives me 5 and 0 because Liam is text and therefore doesn't have a value. This is a problem because I might use a 0 as a number, So I can't really use this. And there's another issue in here that if I use equals n and just, sorry, if I go in this one, equals n, then highlight this range, Control Shift right arrow to select it all. Notice it says F7 hash. Hash means select the entire range that has spilled. So if I put that in like that, I'm getting these values here. It's coerced it. It's put it all into one cell. I don't want it. I want it to still expand. And unfortunately, the n function, for reasons unknown, does not allow this spilling to go on. But there's another function that does. If I use value instead of n, then it will spill. And unfortunately, text gives you the hash value error. But that's all right. At least I've now distinguished between things that are numbers and things that are not numbers. And then I can classify them. So I'm going to say, OK, I'll classify this. And I'll go in here. I'll use my formula text function. So I'll stop trying to write the formula in there. And I'll say, OK, I'm going to use if. Right, if it's a number. So I'm going to use the isNumber function in Excel. IsNumber. We'll learn to type in a minute, isNumber, and I'll highlight that whole range. So I'll click on there and then go Control Shift right arrow. So I get F8 hash. You can just type in hash if you want. So if it is a number, I want it to put one thing, and if it's not, I want it to put another. And I'm going to put a comma 1, otherwise 0. So if it's a number, it's going to put a 1, and if it's not a number, it's going to put a 0. Now, because I'm lazy, I don't actually need the 0 here. Put that out, and I get this. So I've got that. So I've got naught, noughts, ones, and zeros. So now I have got, I've now classed whether or not it's a number. Now what I want to do is I want to work out in terms of the actual characters. So I've gone through and said, OK, I've got these numbers in here. I want to work out the nth character and the n-1th because I want to compare when they differ from each other. So I want to be able to compare this one to the one below it and so on. So I need to be able to split out what the actual character is in here. And I'm going to use the index function. So index, so I find nth character. And what I'm going to do here is say, OK, I'm going to say, right, take index. So index says take a range, and it can be a row, it can be a column, or it can be an array. That's so many rows and so many columns. I'm just going to do it on the row. So I'm going to say, right, so I'm going to take this range here, F9, comma, and then what I want to do is I want to take the first one, the second one, the third one, and so on, all the way up to the length of the actual thing. So it's going to be equal to the sequence of 1 and the length of the actual original text, which is this thing. Close brackets, close brackets, close brackets. Now that is actually returning the first character in this, that's returning the second, that's returning the third, and so on. Liam, that's brilliant. Haven't you just done what you did in row 9? Well, yes, sort of. It's a subtle point, because what I want to now do is I want to find the n-1th character. There's n-1th character is, I'm going to steal this formula. So I'm going to take this and just copy it and just paste it down one into here. But now what I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to go and say, right, after this sequence, before the these bracket here, I'm going to put a third argument for the sequence here. And this is going to be the start. Instead of starting at 1, which is the default, I'm going to start at 0. So it goes one number back. Do you see what's happened is they've all been displaced one position. So now I can compare one with another one to see if they are the same. So now it's just a case of, well, are they the same? Are they consistent? And this is going to be very simply, okay, equals, does this equal that? Now I want to do it for the whole range. So I'm going to go equals F10 hash equals, you see, I'm just clicking it in rather than keep going, F11 hash. And that gives me trues and falses going through the whole time. So I've got this. So you can see where it's a false, that's where it's gone from number to a text. Where it's a false here, it's gone from a number back to text again, and so on. That's where I need to put our spaces in. I'm breaking it out. So I've got this in here. So that's the idea. Now I can't use that formula as it stands here. That won't work, but I'm going to use something along those lines to put it in. So I want to say if those two things work. So I'm going to actually add the spaces now by using the formulas I developed in rows 10 and 11. Right, so to add the spaces in rows 10 and 11, I'm going to steal these two formulas. So I'm going to take this formula in here, Control C, and I'm going to say, right, equals, if this whole thing, just paste this in, I'm going to get an equal sign in there, so we'll just get rid of that equals. So that whole thing there equals the one before it. So just paste the whole thing again, get rid of that equal sign. I'll put a comma 0 here. So that's making sure that rows 9 and 10 work. We have to do that so that it will actually spill. Then what I'm going to do is, if they are equivalent, there's nothing to do. I'm just going to take the actual space in here, which is going to be the separate characters. So it's going to be this. Otherwise, it's going to be add a space. So I'm going to put a space in here like that and add F7 hash. I'm just typing it this time just to show you can do it that way as well. Close brackets. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll put that right. It's put them in. So it's add a space where it actually changes class. So I've got those in. I've added the spaces. Now I can put the whole thing back together again. I can join it up. Concatenate. So what I'll do is I'll use the recently new function rather than concatenate. I'll use concat. So I'll use concat, and I'm just going to take this entire range, and I'll even try and learn how to close a bracket, and I've put it all back together again. So I've joined it back up, so you can see now I've got the numbers spaced out. Now let's get rid of the extra spaces. I can't even type now, can I? So that's going to be here. Okay, put that down like that, and I'm just going to go in here. Okay, equals trim, open brackets, put this in like here, and that's got rid of the excess spaces. And then I want to have it so that it's just in the proper cases. So I'm going to go in here as well, and I'm going to make it proper. So I'm going to use the proper function in Excel, which just capitalizes the first letter. So I'll go in here and go equals proper and click on this. And now you can see I've got that in here, and I can make my solution up here equals that. And that's how I've got this nice and tidy. Now, what I've tried to do here, and okay, this form is a bit longer that I've just realized I didn't show it all, so it's a bit bigger. We will circulate this solution, this formula, afterwards, so people can have a look at it. If anyone's got any questions, please contact either Ali or Kong offline in the chat box, and we will make sure this file gets sent out. We'll put it up somewhere afterwards with the video, I'm sure. So I'll make sure I save this, so we've got this. We'll perhaps make it a little bit prettier than this particular version, but I've got this in here now. This just shows you how it's going on. Now you can build this back up to make it one big monster formula, so that you can just go in and just have it as a horrible formula. And the way you do that is to actually go one bit at a time. So proper F15, well, this is the F15, so I'll take this. So if I go in here and I make this equals proper open brackets that cell, and where I've got F15 in here, I take that and I put this in. This is called the principle of staggered development in modeling, because what you're doing is you're building it back up into being one formula, so you don't need this stepped out approach. Then F14 is this thing, so I take that. This way you never have that problem with wondering whether you've got enough open and closed brackets in there. Oops. There you go. Now I have to refer to F13, which is this thing. That's lovely, isn't it? Control C. So I go into here, and where I've got that F13, I just put in this thing. See, still working. And now I've got the F9s, the F6s, the F7s. So I've got to put all that in. So F9 is the classify. So that's this thing. So wherever I've got F9, I copy this. So if I go back into here, I've got an F9 here. I have got another F9 here. And then if I make this a bit wider, have I got any more? No, I don't seem to, so I can press enter, it's still working. Then what else have I got? Because I'm trying to get back to cell B2 in the end. So F8, so the F8 cell is this thing. So take this one, Control C, and wherever I've got F8, I'll put it in. I used to get these horrible formulas going in, but you can get it all in one cell. Now, I'm not advocating you do this. John Walker back in Excel MVP was always talking about the fact that the formula will calculate faster if you do it like this. So I defer to Charles Williams or tell me whether or not that's still the case these days. But for F7, I can copy this in. So wherever I see an F7 in here, I'm going to take that, Control V, and then I've got this and put it in. And this is giving you an idea of how you combine things and make things look pretty yuck, when in fact it's not that bad when you've stepped it out like this. So I go through here now. I've now got F6s all over the place. So I've just got the F6s. F6 is taking me back to B2. So I'm just going to do a find and replace at this point and go wherever I see F6, I want it to say B2. So I'm just going to go Control H, it's a keyboard shortcut, and replace F6 with B2. And just go replace all, bang, all done. Oops, well, that stuffed up the ones down below, but that's okay. This one's working now. See how that's going through? So we've got that now, one horrible formula in one cell is building it up, but you've got all the steps in there. Now I'm conscious I'm trying to get through a few different things in this time, but it's a case of people think, oh, you're an MVP, you've got to do something horrible and complicated. So I thought I'd start off with something horrible and complicated to go through to put in here. So we have that there. And it's just at this point, Ali reminded me, start off with something humorous, Liam. And I didn't. So I'll come back with something now. So sorry, Ali, I forgot. It's okay. I just got straight into it. It's too early. Now I've got 5 things all together. That one, as I said, took a little bit of time. The next one is very quick. Please know it's about changing dates and times. Well, it's just the dates is actually what I wanted to show here. So sometimes internationally, you're working with both US and European dates, and we look at things differently. As I said, here in Australia at the moment, it's the 1st of October. So I would put in here, if I had dates, I would put 1st of October 2020. Yesterday in America, though, you would put in here the 9th of the 30th 2020, and that just looks like that for me because I work on the European date system, and that's just a text string as far as I'm concerned. That will not actually be anything else. So this one would actually be, if I was going to put this in, should have been under the American system 10/1/20, which it will recognize as the 10th of January on my version. And if I put another one in, let's say I put the 7th of the 15th 2020 as well, I've got these. The issue is sometimes we need to convert them from one date system to another. Well, the first thing I always do with these sorts of things is convert them to a table. So I'm just going to go insert and table, or keyboard shortcut Control T. Now, depending on whether the first date is recognized or not, you may find my table has headers is checked or unchecked, because if it doesn't recognize the date, it'll put it in as a text string, and that will therefore be unchecked. But I do want it to be my table as headers. How do I convert these to dates that my computer recognizes? So sorry for the US viewers that are watching here, but I'm on a European system, so I've had to do it this way. But if you're a US dates person, then put them in as a European system, so you make it 39/2020, so you've got the same problem. People talk about using Power Query, and you can do that. You can actually do it with VBA and use define functions if you want. Here's the simplest way. You go to data, and then you go to text to columns. It brings up this little wonderful wizard here, the text to columns wizard, and I just want it to be that I'm not actually going to break it out into any columns. So I don't care. It's not about fixed width. I'm just going to go delimited, hit next, and just for the delimiters, uncheck all of them. Is any there? All off. We're not going to break it out into columns. We're just going to go to the next one, and where's the date? You put the date in as it's put in there. So I've got it in here. It's going month, day, year. It's in my case. So I would put month, day, year if I can find it, MDY, and click finish. And then if I go over here, it's now converted those dates to the right ones. And my table never held, did it? Did I not actually put that in? But it's actually converted them. So that's how you can convert dates. Quick tip, 2nd of the 5. All right, let's move on to the next one if I actually can learn how to use this. The next one is a question I saw in the tech community about conditional formatting in charts. Can you do it? Can you actually put some conditional formatting in? Well, let's see with some tips along the way, shall we? So, my brief was don't start with any example, do everything from scratch. So I'll save this file and put it up afterwards. So I've got here. So I'm going to have here, I'm going to have my month and I'm going to have my sales. And Feb and so on, and just copy those down. Good old autocomplete here. I just had a side tip while I'm here, going on tips. You know, do take advantage of the autofill. So for instance, if I put red and orange here and drag these down, do you all get the colours of the rainbow? You don't. Are you getting frustrated traffic lights? Red, orange, red, orange, red, orange. Well, notice what's happened here. Liam's got a sense of humour. And in cell F8, I've got violent. I don't think is one of the colours of the rainbow. If you're somebody that actually is using things where you have products or services or lists that you use all the time and you keep having to copy them, paste them or whatever, or keep typing them in, here's a tip, use a custom list. You just create the list once. And then what you do is you go to File Options or Alt-T-O and you go down to Advanced and you just take this right down to the bottom till you get to this button here, the Edit Custom Lists, and you click on this. And in here, you can just add ones where you put the range and hit import, and then it will remember them in your Excel personal workbook so that every time you open this Excel file up, it will, not Excel file, this computer up, I should say, these lists will be available to you. So I put the letters of the alphabet up, I put north, east, south, west, the colours of the rainbow, and so on. So that's just a side tip just in here. That's not really what this was about, but I thought I would mention it in passing. So I'm going to put here 10, 20, and copy those down. I'm going to shrink this down again because I'm going to put a chart in here in a second. So I'm going through it. Now, quickest way to create a chart from this is just Alt F1. We'll bring up a little chart like this straight off. Very imaginative. If I put July in here now, go in here, right click, select data, go and extend the range. Seem familiar? Yeah, don't do it that way. Back to here, and this time we will let the table stick. Insert table. My table does have headers, and I will call this table. So I'm going to go up to the top here. I can't have spaces in here. It's illegal character. No difference between illegal and unlawful. Unlawful means to contradict or contravene the rules, the regulations, or territory of the jurisdiction you're in, whereas illegal is a sick bird. Perhaps doesn't translate so well into other languages. Anyway, chart data, always a good idea. Table. Now if I go back into here and I go Alt F1 again, create my chart, I can now put in here if I want August 100, and it automatically updates. Very useful. So when I create charts, I always use the tables, not dynamic ranges or anything like that. I use a table because it will automatically extend. Really, really nice and simple. Maybe I want to actually have the maximum one to be a different color and have a label in here that is how can I actually make that the maximum. So in order to put things like this in, let me show you. So you can just click on one of these individually and you can go in here and you can change the color, but then when the numbers change it will stick to that color. So it's not dynamic, it's not true conditional formatting. So we need another way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is going to have my month, and then I'm going to have my sales, and then I'll have my max. My month is just simply going to be equal to this going across. My sales I'll come back to in a minute. The max is going to be equals if, open brackets, this value here equals the max of this range, and you can see it's using structured referencing here, but so if it equals that, then it's going to use that value. Otherwise it's going to be 0. Well, and I tend to, when we don't want things to display, I'll use the NA function in Excel because that means don't display in a chart. So I've got that, and then it shows me where the max is, 100, and if I change that to 120, It puts it there, and if I put that to 120, then I've got 2 of them. Now for the sales here, I'm going to have this say, okay, if open brackets is NA, this one here, then I'm going to use that number. Otherwise, I'm going to go NA. So it's going to put the number in when it's not a maximum. And there's other ways you can write these formulas, but that's how I've got it. So this is going to be my chart. So I've got this in here as my chart. Let's delete this. And this is going to be my chart data in this particular case. And I can turn this into a table as well. My table has headers. Oh yes, yes. So the error it's giving me here is because I put formulas in the headings, and I'm just, do you want to put those as just labels? And yes, I do. So put that in, and I'll call this another. Call that another table. So we've got this in here like that. Put this in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my little wonderful chart again. So I can go Alt F1 if I want to try and create a chart, and you can see it's putting it in like this. Now I'm going to make this a bit bigger. You can see already it's put the conditional formatting in. It's already starting to work. You see, this is how you cheat and get your conditional formatting. And I'm going to just hold the Alt button down to make it snap to grid. And then I'm going to hold the Control button down to just make it a bit, oops, try and make it a bit bigger. No, just, there we go, so it's a bit bigger. Get rid of those lines, make it a bit clearer. Now, I don't know if you can see or not that the blue column is over to the left of the month, and the orange column is over to the right of the month, because what's happened is the chart type, if I go to change chart type, it's actually using in here this one, which is the clustered column. You don't want clustered column, you want stacked column, because that'd be useful for the labels. So I'm going to put to stacked column and click OK. That makes it look better now, and we can go in here and I can start going, right, let's format this series a bit, and we can go in here and say, right, well, the gap width, let's just make it 50%, make it a bit bigger like this, and I can add chart labels on here. So I'm going to put in here, so I can go in here, so just click on a particular series and then click add, and I want to bring my data labels in. So if I want to put the data labels in, I want to put it up on not inside end. You can put it inside end. You can't put it on top because this is actually a stack one, so only put it in here. So put it here, like that's fine. Format these. I'm going to make them yellow, bold. Let's make them bigger. And then for these, I'm also going to go in here and say, right, I want to add my data labels for this one. And I'm going to go, right, let's take those. I'm going to make those red and bold, make those bigger like this. I might want to make them red, didn't I? That's a horrible color. Let's go for green. There you go. I have conditionally formatted the fields and the labels, so I've got in here what they are. And you know, you can even change the chart data. So because this is a maximum table, I can say here, right, I can write in here equals chart, each marks equals chart data up to, and then ampersand, take the maximum, sorry, not the maximum, it's just going to be the final period. So it's just going to be the final one here, the table. Me chart date up to org. Now, if these were dates, I could have used the max function, taken the maximum and done that instead, but I'm just trying to show you how I go. And then in here in the chart title, I'll just go equals to that. And I can make that bigger, bolder. And we got a nice little dynamic chart, and you can do other things with that if you want to, but I'm just trying to show you this is how you can put conditional formatting into a chart. What you have to do is create separate rows or columns of it and format them and then stack them in this particular way. So it's thinking outside the box because you can't actually conditionally format. So it's just one of those tips in there. So, okay, that's the third of my 5. Let's go back. What's next? Right, the next one, the penultimate one here is the depreciation challenge. Now, I'm here in Australia. I've been an MVP now for my sins for about 10 years. They haven't found a valid excuse to get rid of me yet, but perhaps this shambolic presentation will finally do it for them. I specialise in financial modelling. We run a company called Some Products. If you've got any queries about that, you can look at our website, which I'll point you to towards the end. And so we do a lot of financial modelling. So the ones I've done so far have been sort of more generic, but forgive me for putting a modelling example in here. But I did actually say it might be a good idea to go with this because a lot of the other MVPs aren't financial modelers. So we'll go through. So I wanted to explain how to actually calculate depreciation when it's a bit more complicated. Now, if you're about to switch off and go, oh my God, I don't care about accounting or things like this, but you survived the big, long, horrible formula I did at the beginning, please bear with me here, because even if you don't model depreciation, if you have no idea what depreciation is here, the idea of what I'm going to do, where I'm going to multiply in reverse, is something that's a common problem in Excel, regardless of it being dressed up in some fanciful accounting idea. So stick with me. It's still worth knowing this because sometimes this is a problem you have to deal with. So I thought I'll show a few tips in this, and if you're never ever going to model it the way I'm going to model it, that's fine. But some of the tricks I go in here hopefully will be useful that you can use day to day in whatever it is you do in any case. Right, so let me just go back to the Excel file. So let's go to the fourth one. So what depreciation is a way of actually splitting out the money. So companies have these profit and loss accounts where they have their sales come in, they have the costs, and they show what was attributable to that period. So I made 5 sales of $100 each, would be $500 that I would show as my revenue, regardless of whether or not I got the money. That would be the cash flow statement to show me. But in the income statement, I made 5 sales, it's $100 each, so people owe me $500. The problem is this thing called capital expenditure. When you've got big stuff like machinery, buildings, cars, computers, you're using those to run your business. So you're not making sales or costs. So it wouldn't be a good idea to put all of it in one go. So if you're buying an office building that's $30 million, you don't want to put that through your profit and loss in 1 year, because what's going to happen is you're going to annihilate all your profits, and it's going to look like you've gone to the wall. So what you do is, if you bought a $30 million building, you might say, well, look, I'm going to have this for 40 years, 4 years, so that's going to be $750,000 cost on average each year. And that's what we call straight line depreciation, because you're assuming it's an even proportion each year. If you're going to do that, there's functions in Excel called SLN that will do that, and so on, which will look at the cost, the salvage, and the life. So the cost will be the 40 million, the salvage will be 0, and the life will be, so let's just put it in. So we'll put, so the cost was 30, the salvage is 0, and the life is going to be 40 years. What that would do is 0.75, and it's already deciding I'm using a currency, so it's using the pound symbol because of what's going on here. So that's straight line depreciation. What I want to do is things that are more complicated than that. So it might be that you only want to split a certain percentage. So this happens in utilities, oil and gas sectors, things like this. But there's other times you can use it as well. So let's have a period number first of all. So I'm going to go in here, right? So I'll type in here period number. And I'll go 1, 2, and across to 8. This is a bad way of doing it, because if you want to extend it, people will do this. If you want to go to period 9, I've now got 9 ones. That's not a good way. So what people do is they go equals the cell to the left and add 1, and then copy that across, and that works fine if you want to drag it further until someone puts text in here, and then everything goes to hash value. So what I do is I use that n function I was talking about earlier today, because that treats text as 0, so n of C3 plus 1, and I copy that across, I get this, and I'll just use my formula text function again that I was playing with earlier, that will actually put that in, and we'll make that red so that you can see what I'm doing. Let's have some capex. So these are going to be my assumptions. Let's make that bold as well, actually, while I think about it. Right, so let's make it look like it's an input. So I'm going to go more colors and use this pale yellow, which is what a lot of people do. Put a border around it, give it a blue font, and then I'm going to go 100, 200, and so on. Now, capex tends to be notoriously spiky and it's all over the place, so it doesn't work like this, but it will do for the purposes of this. So I've got that. Then I'm going to have what my depreciation profile is. So how much do I want it to actually take each year? So this is going to be another one. I'm going to make this a percentage. So it's like that. And we'll just copy it across. We've got the formatting first. So I'll make this 7%, 13%, 29%, 5%, also 6% there. What should we do here? 42%, and I'm going to delete, and in the final one, I'm going to get equals 1 minus the sum of all the rest, so that I've definitely got it adding up to 100%. 3% in this case. So that's how it's going to go. Well, let's put the 3 in here, and then we've got 0 in the others. So I can work out what my actual depreciation value is. Right, so how do I get this working through then? Well, let's work this out. I'm going to insert another column here because let's make this narrower. I'll show you why I'm going to need this column in a second. I want to have the years 1 to 8 down here, so I'm going to go equals n open brackets of the cell above plus 1 again. And I'm going to make it look like it's depreciation year 1 to 8. So I'm going to use custom number formatting here. And I'm going to put into the custom number formatting because it's difficult to read. I'm going to type in a second depreciation and then put year space, then close speech marks 0 is what I'm going to put in. So that's going to put text in, and the 0 means put a number in. That's all it means. If I steal this and then I highlight these cells, and I go to the Home tab and go Format Cells or Control 1 and put it in here and go down to Custom Number Formatting. I'm going to then paste what I've just put in there in here. And it shows you what it's going to look like. It's going to be depreciation year 1 for the first cell, year 2, and so on. So that's what I've got. Okay. They're all right aligned because it's text. I want it to look like, it's a number I should say, I want it to make it look like text, so I've left aligned it. And now I can actually transpose these. I want to get the 100 to the 800 down here. So I want to get the 100 to the 800 down here. So I'm going to go in here and go, okay, I want the 100 to the 800. So I'm going to go, okay, how do I do that? Well, I can go like this and go copy, and then go down here and go paste special. And then just go to transpose and click OK. That will do it. But the trouble is, if I change that to 555, nothing happens. An alternative would be to use the transpose function in Excel. In this case, you have to highlight the range and go equals transpose. And if you don't have the dynamic arrays, you just highlight this range like that, and then you have to press Control-Shift-Enter or put it into all of these. Unfortunately, if I insert a row at this point, only Chuck Norris can change part of an array. So not a good idea to do it that way either. But what I'm going to do is use a function called offset. An offset allows you to displace things. So if I've got the numbers 1, 2, 7, and 8 here, and just copy these across and down. What this does is offset, if I go here equals offset, open brackets, and I go to this cell here, go comma 2, comma 3, that means go down 2 rows and across 3 columns. So going down 2 rows would take me from 1 to 7 to 13 and across to 3 columns from 13 to 14 to 15 and then finally to 16. So put me here. Now, if I were to actually put 2 more in, you see I've also got in here, if I make this bigger, I've got height and width as well. So I can actually specify this. This is dynamic arrays. Now, this will give you hash value if you've not got Excel 365 here, but this will still work. It's going to demonstrate it here. So don't worry if you get hash value if you're doing it here. If I do comma 2, comma 2, that's going to say go to that cell with a 16 in it and then go 2 rows and 2 columns where left to right is positive, down the page is positive, right to left and up the page are both negative. So it's going to start at 16, go down 2 rows, so it'll be 16 and 22, and across 2 columns to 17 and 23. All you've heard is blah, 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 enter. You see it's spilt and shown me all of those things. Now, if you don't have dynamic arrays on your computer, at this point, you'll get hash value. That's okay. It doesn't matter because you can still do that. It just can't display it because if I type sum in here, well, 16 plus 17 is 33, plus 22 is 55, plus 23 is 78. It coerces it back to one value and it'll work even if you got hash value before. And that's the idea of offset. So I'm going to use that offset a couple of times in here. So I'm going to go equals offset, open brackets. I'm going to start on this cell here, make that absolute. And then I don't want to go any rows down, but I want to go 1 column across, 2 columns across. So I'm going to click on this cell here. So what that will do as I go across is it's transposing it and putting it down here. I can insert rows or columns if I want, and I can do this, and it will change the number. See? Now I'm going to write a formula for the 7%. So it's going to be equal this times that value here, and then copy this across. Could be one way of doing it. And then I copy that down. That's got my numbers. Now, unfortunately, I have to go Control X and paste that here. And then I have to go, and some of you are going to say, you can do it better than this with, you can go through it. Yes, I know I can, but just bear with me, all right? I'm showing a better way of doing it than this. So if you go here, Control X, put it here, didn't need those values. Then I'm going to go here, Control X. I didn't have enough material. What I would have done is I'd have just done more rows. And then I'll go here, Control X, go here, Control V, your board jet, Control X, Control V, and then take that, Control X, and paste it here, Control V. And it's taking those numbers. So it's going 7% of 100, 13% of 100, 29% of 100, and it's doing 7% of 200. And it starts a year later because it comes in a year later. So if I'm putting a top border in here and I'm making it bold, I can go through here and go Alt equals to sum that. That's a keyboard shortcut to sum up the range. And there we go. So let's just put some formulas in so you can see what I've done here. You can see what it is I've done and copied it down. So that's how I can have any bespoke depreciation rate I like, which is sometimes what you need about usage and things like this as things go through. And people have to build these things. And the problem is if you've got like 20 years monthly data, you can have 240 columns, so which I mean you have 240 rows, which 240 times 240, Kung, you know, is it's like 57,600 and so on. Is there a better way of doing it? And the answer is yes, there is. What we do is something called the reverse approach. Now, with this, I'm going to use something called the sum product function. And sum product works like this. If I've got the numbers 1, 2, 3 here, and I've got the numbers 4, 5, and 6 here, if I take the product of these, which is that times that, I could have just done equals product, those numbers, and then copied them down. If I sum them, that gives me 32. Or I could have just done equals sum product, open brackets, that, comma, that. Or because it would work with different operators, just make it clear we want to multiply them, I'll put a times. It gives me the same thing. And that's the idea I'm going to use here with that offset function. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in my actual calculations. I have my counter in again. So I'm going to put my counter in. So we've got this up here, equals that. Then I'm going to have here is going to be what my actual depreciation is going to be. Now, I'm going to have my reverse counter. And that's going to equal the maximum of this row, just take the whole row, minus the number in there, plus 1. So all I'm doing is I'm turning it around. Right. Now I can look up my data. I can actually calculate my depreciation. So that's my total depreciation here, because if you think about it, to get that 7, it's 100 times 7%. To get the 27, it's 100 times 13 plus 200 times 7. Yep, I'm having to take the reverse of 1. That gives me that. For this one, it's going to be 100 times 29 plus 200 times 13 plus 300 times 7. If I swapped one of these two rows round, I would actually be able to get the numbers through. You see what I'm doing? So I'm going to put in now my reverse profile. And I'm going to use just the lookup function. I don't have to use any clever ones because lookup works fine when it's in ascending order. So I'm going to go equals lookup. Open. I want to find that value in this range, like that. and that just gives me the percentages. So that's percentage. Keep it nice and simple. No need for index match or VLOOKUP. Well, VLOOKUP won't work there anyway. And then I can work out what my total depreciation is. Actually, I might put, just to make it clear, let's bring the capital down, capex down. So here equals that, and copy it down. Right, let me show you how I can calculate the same thing. I do a sum product. So I'm going to do the sum product of, right, it's going to be the offset because I'm going to keep extending the range. It's going to start off with this cell here, made absolute. We're not going to move any rows or columns or have a height, but the width is going to be this. I go that one, and then what we're going to do is going to multiply it by offset. I'm going to start off with that percentage over here. Not going to move any rows, columns, height, but we're going to have a width of minus that number. Close bracket, close bracket. Now, if I format this the same as that and copy it across, I've stuffed it up. That's all right because I've obviously anchored. Yes, I've anchored on this E20. I have actually forgotten to get rid of that anchor sign here because I'm an idiot. But that's okay. It's life. You see, I get the same numbers. What's happened here is that in the first one, I have taken this number here and I'm keeping it, it's always staying on here, but I'm just extending the width. And it's positive here and it's negative there. So when it's negative, it will go from right to left. And when it's positive, it will go from left to right. So for the 7 here, it's taking the 100 and multiplying its sum product by that. In the second period, it's taking those two numbers and taking the sum product with those two. So it's 13% of 100 plus 200 times 7. In the third period, it's the sum product of those three with those three. So it's 29% of 100, 200 times 13%, and 300 times 7%. Do you see this is useful? Because often we have to swap things around and multiply. This is a common problem. Whether you're doing it in accounting or not the issue. It's one of these things that it's a good way of actually demonstrating it here. There isn't an Excel function that does it, but just using these simple techniques like this, I've actually condensed that if I had 57,600 calculations there, I'd still only need these 5 rows maximum, and might not even need all of those, to actually calculate the depreciation. Simple, eh? Right, one last one before I open it to Q&A is best Excel tip ever. I always finish on this one in terms of going through. But before I do that, Kungan Ali, are there any questions or things? Because I haven't got my chat box in terms of anyone's got out there at the moment.
Hey, Liam, yes, there are a couple of questions. This one on, can you demonstrate how SumX works in Power Pivot? So that's one.
I haven't got time for sorry, I haven't got any data for that, I'm afraid. Yeah, sorry, this is why we were doing pre-preparation. I'm happy to try and knock up something quickly afterwards, but I won't get it done before the hour's up. Yep.
Or maybe we can save that for a follow-up video. Yeah,
really sorry about that one, everybody. I was asked to prepare stuff beforehand because you need just it's fairly straightforward. It's not difficult. But I'll try and knock something up quickly in a second. Yep. And what was the other question, my friend?
All right. Next question is, what is a real-life application of separating text and numbers like this using mid, sequence, length,
etc.? So going back to no, as I mentioned, this gets used a lot for general ledger codes. So when people are actually having data that comes in from third-party sources, if they can't use Power Query for something, which should be, people sometimes ask less sophisticated users ask for an Excel version. You're looking to break out the numbers and the actual text. You want to split it out so that perhaps you can split it to text to columns, and you want to do it formulaically. And for some reason, you don't feel comfortable with Power Query. It's also been used in the past. I've seen for credit cards where people's names and credit card numbers have been put together. Yes, I can't demonstrate with an example there because that breaks a few rules. Also, car registration plates is another one where it's been split out so that people have a database and they want to clean it up. Look, a lot of these things actually go through that you can clean them up in Power Query. I'm not going to lie about that. But the fact is, this was a question that came up just twice last week, once in the one of the tech communities and once on our own website, someproduct.com, which is why we thought it was pertinent to bring up today. The sum X one quickly, just trying to go through this, is with the sales. I'm going to try and knock it out quickly, is if I've got quantity and price, or let me have 5, 6, and 7. And I've got here the sales of 12, 15, and 20. Let's just have a table. Data. So this is a sum X is a DAX function. So we're talking about Power Pivot here is what we're doing. So what you do is you need to load this to Power Pivot. So I've got to actually make sure I've got Power Pivot up and running. And the problem is I've got the thing in the way, so I can't stop presenting. It comes up when I do that, so I have to go in here. So to get to Power Pivot, it's quite frustrating. That is going here. So if I go to Power Pivot, I want to add this to the data model. Let's just put it in. Lots of different ways of doing this. So I'm going to go in here and just copy, Control C, and then go Manage, bring it into the Power Pivot data model. Paste. So I've got this. I'm going to call this data. The reason my table looks strange is because I've changed the font size on my Excel. So that's all it is. It's just in case of going in. So I've got that in here. Always make sure you've got in here that you've got your quantities. I want it to be whole number rather than sort of put a comma in. Always put the formatting in before anything else. And I'm just going to put this into a pivot table. So I've got a pivot table in here. So I've got quantity and price. Now, if I've got these in here and I want to actually have my quantity and price and putting them through in here, how do I actually get up my total sales? So the sum X function is a measure that you can put in there. So I'm just going to add this very quickly, is create a new measure in here. Is if I can make this bigger and get down. So I'm going to put in here that I want to work out what my total sales are. Well, it's going to be the quantity times the price for each row. And what the X functions do is they do it on a record by record basis. So if I want to put those in, I can put in here sum X here. So what that does is it returns the table with the new column specified by the DAX expression. So the table is going to be the one I've just done, which is data. And then it's going to be of the data price multiplied by the data quantity. There's brackets. Now, if I hold the control button down and use the flywheel, I can make it go bigger like that, which is quite useful. Always when you're going to put this in, I'll have a number and currency to 0 decimal places. I can't use that $sign because that will crash Power Pivot. That's a bug that has been known about for a while. So I'm just going to change that to something else. So I've got this in here. Check the formula. It's all happy. It's going to multiply each row and then add them together. So the number should be coming into 32 when I put them in. So my measure in, so it's not 32. Wasn't 32. That was my example. Where's my data here? Where is my data? It's here. So if I go in here and go equals that times that and add them up, that adds up to 290. And what the sum X has done is it's just done it all in one record. So hopefully that answers that question. While we wait for questions, I just want to finish on one last thing. I know we're almost out of time. It's 1 minute to the hour, but give me just this. I want to say is best Excel tip ever, just to finish on here, is if you've got somebody that frustrates you and things like that, and you want to play a trick on them, try this. If they leave their laptop or PC unguarded, here's something. Microsoft won't condone this, I'm sure, but there's something called data validation in each cell. So if you go to the data tab and you go in here to data validation, you can actually put in here any value you like. You can say, okay, any value is allowed, but you can restrict it. So it can only be a whole number. You can make it a whole number between two values, or it's got to be equal to, not equal to, greater than, etc., etc. Or you can make it be a decimal, so it's any number, or from a list, or whatever. But I'm going to make it a decimal, and it must be equal to. So I'm just going to highlight the whole sheet and go Alt-DL is the keyboard shortcut to bring this up. I'm going to go in here and say, right, it's got to be a decimal, and it has to be equal to minus point that. And if I click OK, what happens now when I click on this, if I put anything that isn't that in there, I get an error message. This value doesn't match the data validation restrictions. Not very funny, Liam. Yeah, so it's all about, with comedy, it's all about perfect humor and timing. So if I go back into this and go Alt DL, let's actually put an error message in, shall we? I'm going to go in here, show an error alert, and I'm just going to put it as a warning. I'm just going to put something that might wake them up. Now, make sure you've got a human resources policy that won't get you fired, and the IT department is in on the joke. That's pretty good, but this is the best bit. Then you click off, back, this, you make sure it's unhighlighted, then they type something in. And that's what we call a brown trousers moment. I'm pretty sure I'm almost out of time here. Hopefully that's been useful and not too much of a lawsuit coming. Here's some details. We have a website called someproduct.com, and my contact details are up here too. We have a newsletter with lots of tips and tricks in here on Power Pivot, Power Query, Power BI, and Excel. Sorry, I stayed away from Power Pivot and Power Query in this one because I know there's other MVPs going to cover that, and I wanted to cover the financial modeling because I know others didn't. We have challenges on here on the final Friday of each month in the blog section, and we have free articles on Power Pivot, Power Query, and Power BI weekly. So you might want to have a look in there, and you can feel free to subscribe to the newsletter. Kung and Ali, I'm conscious I'm out of time. Any more questions or feedback before we finish, ladies and gents?
No, I think that is all. Thank you.
Well, thanks, everybody. As I say, if you've got any queries, feel free to drop me a line. The Excel file I'm using here, I will make sure I pass on to Kung afterwards so he can put that through. I'll just tidy it up a little bit before I send it. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this session, my name's Liam Bastick. If you didn't, my name is Kung Pham. But thank you for this, and all the other sessions will be much more professional and better than this. Thank you.